Picture this. You're in a meeting and you had the answer first, but before you spoke, you questioned it, and someone else shared the same idea with far less hesitation and walked away with the credit. And then you're left thinking, I should have said something. Does that sound familiar? Because for many competent women, it is. They prepare more, they double check more, and they worry more. Meanwhile, someone with half the experience seems completely convinced that they're ready. So, why do competent women still doubt themselves? And why does that doubt linger long after we have proven that we can do hard things? If you've ever stayed silent, second guessed yourself, or talked yourself out of an opportunity, then this episode is for you. So, let's talk about it. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalyst. I'm your host, Shanita B. This is where we explore how a thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at life's crossroads can become the catalyst for meaningful change in your leadership and the direction of your life. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why self-doubt persists even when you're highly capable. And then you're going to leave with some practical ways that you can stop using doubt as evidence that you're not ready. Because that is not evidence. And where does that leave you when you lean on that? It leaves you in the world of what should have been rather than looking forward to what could be. And this reminds me of something because I was listening to a discussion recently and I heard someone say that you got to stop shoulding on yourself. You hear that? Because nothing good is going to come from it. And then you're left kicking yourself at the end of all of it. But that's what happens when you're waiting on confidence. And that hesitation costs you something. Okay. And it just kind of erodes whatever confidence that you think that you might have already had at that point. It's undermining you. And so I did an episode on this and I'll link it in the show notes so that you can check that out later. So we're going to start with definitions because I love definitions and I want to make sure that we're thinking about confidence in the same way. Confidence is a feeling of self-assurance arising from an appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. And I absolutely love this definition. It is really an excellent definition. And the reason why I like it is because confidence begins with accurately recognizing your own abilities and most importantly, trusting them, not dismissing them, not minimizing them, or even pretending that they don't exist. Because I think a lot of highly capable and competent women just kind of marginalize their abilities. So don't be the president of that fan club, okay? You know the one that I'm talking about too. I'm talking about the one that says that I'm not good enough. You're the president of the I'm not good enough committee. And somehow we keep electing ourselves as the president of that. So we have to shift away from that. And you might be thinking, well, I do have an appreciation for my abilities. But if that is true, then what's the crossroads? So in what I think that the crossroads is self-doubt. And so we're going to talk through that. But before we move ahead with that, I do want to make sure that I mention something that I think will be helpful to you as it relates to this conversation, especially if it feels really familiar. So if you're someone who constantly questions yourself, despite being accomplished and capable, I created the What's Next Crossroads Reflection Guide for you. Okay. Self-doubt, it really does show up when we're standing at a crossroads. And that's exactly when we need to reflect rather than react. And so it's designed to help you pause and, take that breather that you need before the self-doubt takes over. So instead of spiraling into that maybe I'm not ready conversation with yourself, then you're going to work through some questions that will reconnect you with your strengths and your accomplishments and the direction that you actually want to take. Okay. I still use this for myself. So I don't want you to wait until the next time self-doubt shows up because it will. So download the guide now. And okay, if you're driving, I want you to wait until you're parked. Okay. And the next time self-doubt appears, you'll have something better than overthinking to reach for because you'll be prepared. You'll know how to respond to yourself, which is going to put you in the optimal position. So check out the link in the show notes. And doing so is also going to make sure that you are made aware of the notifications that come out for my upcoming confidence webinar. Okay. So self-doubt is a silent robber. And what this silent robber does is it steals not just your time, but your opportunity and your self-worth because it's chipping away slowly. And this reminds me of a colleague that I have who had been contemplating applying for a higher level position in a different department. And the thing that he thought was a problem was he felt like he had worked too long in the department that he was in and that he'd be typecast and that he wouldn't be able to move beyond that. But in reality, his deep institutional knowledge was really one of his greatest assets. But the self doubt about his skills and abilities that he had honed over the years, they blinded him to his own value. And so, to me, this serves as a poignant reminder that we often become our own harshest critics. We dim the light of our own potential while we magnify perceived flaws. And how easy is it for us to focus in on the things that we think are wrong rather than looking at the things that we have done well? And so, it is essential to recognize that there is an internal barrier and it's not a reflection of reality. Okay. It is a distorted perception that is shaped by fear. So when you pause to objectively evaluate your own achievements, then you're going to discover that the path to growth and confidence is rarely paved with certainty. I want you to think back even on some of the things that you've achieved that you thought were significant and very difficult. Confidence was not necessarily at the forefront of those, okay? Because you have forged a road that is unique to you. And that has already equipped you with the resilience to navigate any professional challenge. So I want you to embrace the breadth of your experience. And that's part of moving forward. If you can recognize some of the things that you've done and how that will assist you in taking those next steps, then you will begin to see yourself as more capable. Okay. And you'll have more confidence because you already have some proof. Right. So then why do high achieving individuals frequently succumb to this internal sabotage? Because that's really what it is. And I think one of those points is that competence and confidence are not the same thing. A lot of people equate competence and confidence, but when you do that, you're confusing yourself. So we have to break these down. Competence is ability. Confidence is belief. You can possess one without fully feeling the other. Okay. You can have more competence and less confidence. Doesn't mean that you can't do the work. But when you flip that on the other side and you see that there is more confidence rather than competence, well, you might find yourself in a sticky situation because you have you have put yourself in a place where you feel like you can do it, but you don't have the skill, the technical skill to maybe carry that out. And I'm not saying that that's always a bad thing. I'm saying that we have to be clear that the two are not the same. Okay. You have confidence. It just may be misdirected because you're confident that you cannot do something. So be aware that you can be just as confident in the thing that you cannot do as you can in the thing that you can do. Okay. You have the ability, but you are choosing not to apply it, thinking that you must have confidence to do it. And so I think that this is one of those myths that is really permeated certain circles. And what it does is it paralyzes you. Okay. Because you're waiting for a feeling of certainty that may never arrive before taking action. But really, the action is the catalyst for the confidence. It's not the precursor. It's not a requirement. So you really have to start deconstructing the myths and the lies that you have told yourself and begin rebuilding that narrative on why and how you can, because it is possible. Okay. So then I think another reason why highly capable women are doubting themselves and succumb to this is because competent people see complexity. Less experienced people often underestimate challenges, but competent people, they have a better understanding of some of the risks and the nuances involved, and even have the foresight, of course, to recognize potential consequences. And you also have a higher awareness of some of the things that you don't know. And so, what does that do? This higher awareness is sometimes used as a crutch for self doubt. So, think about that. Okay, so then another point, self-doubt, it often shows up when growth is required. And so this really is signaling that you may be working out of your comfort zone. And this is a good thing. Think about it. A promotion becomes available, or you have to have a difficult conversation either with a colleague or with a team member, or maybe you're contemplating a business launch or even something major. Not that those things are not major, but a completely different career. You're thinking about switching from one type of job to a different type of job. Yes, you're going to question whether or not you can do it. But this is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. This is an opportunity for you to stretch. And sometimes doubt will come in when that's exactly what you need to do is stretch. It does not prove that you are incapable of doing that thing. All right. So I want you to ask yourself a few questions. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, what evidence do I have that I am capable? Because we have to start thinking about these things in the positive rather than in the negative. Instead of looking to the experience that you lack, let's look to the experience that you do have. So list 3 accomplishments and then say them aloud. Because hearing yourself say them creates a different level of awareness. You can't always rely upon other people to validate you and your abilities. You have to do that for yourself. So then the second question that I want you to ask yourself is this: if my best friend had my experience and qualifications, what advice would I give her? This is going to allow you the opportunity to create some distance from your inner critic. It is a challenge for us to be objective when we're assessing ourselves. But when you take your circumstances and personify them with someone else who you know and care about, it makes it just a little bit easier to detach yourself from that and look at it with a clearer lens. And then the third question that I want you to ask yourself is, what would I do next if self-doubt was not allowed to make the decision? Think about that, because you wouldn't just run away. You would think through, what would be the next logical thing for me to do to get me closer to where I want to be, right? So before the end of today, I want you to take one action that you have been postponing because you didn't feel confident. And whatever that is, it could be asking a question of a colleague or a friend. It could be submitting an application. It could be sharing your insight. Or maybe you were thinking about doing something that is just slightly different from some of the things that you were doing, starting a podcast or starting a YouTube channel. Whatever it is that has prompted the self-doubt, I want you to face it with the evidence, because this is not an issue of capability. This is an issue of committing to do something that is going to move you to where you want to be. And the confidence will be built as a part of taking that action. Okay. Remember this, that self-doubt is a feeling. Competence is evidence. And when those two disagree, trust the evidence. And it's almost like you're arguing against yourself in the court of law. You have to go with the evidence, because the goal is not to become fearless. We've heard that a lot. People throw that out there and we want to be fearless. Well, sometimes fear can be good. So that's why we don't want to throw that out completely. It will cause you to ask some questions, but what kind of questions are you asking yourself? If you're not asking them in a positive manner, I want you to start to rethink how you even approach yourself in assessing where you are, your current state, where you want to be for your future state, and the types of steps that you can do in the meantime to make that transition a little more seamless. All the while, you're chipping away at that self-doubt because you're looking at the things that you have already accomplished that have prepared you to get to that next level. Okay? So if today's episode is something that really resonated with you, then I do think that you're going to get a lot out of the confidence webinar that I'm going to be presenting soon. And so we're going to talk more and more deeply about some of the mindset shifts and the things that you can do so that you stop waiting for confidence and start building it through the things that you have already done. So if you know someone who is far more capable than she gives herself credit for, please send her this episode, okay? Because we're working to not just empower ourselves, but to look at the accomplishments that we have already exhibited and demonstrated and using those things to launch us forward. All right. She may need the reminder that competence and confidence don't always arrive together. Okay. And that is not a sign that she is not ready. And just remember what I indicated. Self-doubt is a terrible assessor of ability. We do not want to rely upon our emotions to make decisions for us, because we will live in the land of regret, which is not where we want to be. All right. So I appreciate that you stuck around with me, and make sure that you check out the links in the notes, and we will talk again soon. So until next time, be thoughtful, be wise, be strategic, and remember, crossroads reveal who you are. Catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters, so make it count. I'll talk to you next week.